Hi, good evening, everyone. Well, I'm thrilled to welcome all of you to the opening reception of Anida Ali's solo exhibition, Hybrid Skin, Mythical Presence. As Catherine said, this is a huge deal for us. It's also the first project I get to work on here at the Asian Art Museum, so I'm really honored. Before I introduce our artists of the evening, I would like to thank all of the SAM team for working on this exhibition. And I especially want to thank those who helped install the exhibition. Many of you have already been inside the galleries, but it's just so maximalist, it's so joyful. And so I wanted to thank personally the following colleagues: Nate Peak, Justin Skoltak, Lauren Barak, Andrew Malcolm, Anthony Ellick, Drew Davis, Josh Gosovic, Michael Milano, Meredith Waddell, Kevin Highbothan, Kit Boyer, Sasha Falsberg, Quincy Blackman, Nate Clark, Kristen Skymick, Danelle J, and Devin Musgrave. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. I would also like to acknowledge Anida Ali's amazing studio team and her partner and collaborator, Masahiro Sugano, who's here with us tonight, who contributed to a selection of the works on view, as well as the installation. Thank you. Prepare yourselves for a fascinating and fabulous journey as we hear from the artist in a minute, and later get to view the exhibition, which covers internationally acclaimed Buddhist Bug and the Red Chador series. Both bodies of work performed around the globe have and continue to evolve and engage wherever they appear. The Buddhist Bug series reflects the conflicting experiences of displacement and belonging and explores Ali's complex relationship between Cambodia and her transnational identity. As Catherine mentioned, it'll be performed live here at the museum on March 23rd, so save the date. In responding to the global rise of Islamophobia, misogyny, and racism, the Red Chador is an ongoing series that challenges perceptions and fears of the other. This exhibition covers the life, death, and rebirth of the Red Chador, and it will be performed in collaboration with 6 community participants across our 3 SAM sites on June 1st, so join us for that as well. Lastly, I must acknowledge Natalia Di Pietratonio. She's the former curator of South Asian art here at SAM, and I'm grateful for being introduced to Anida Ali and her work. I'm honored to have worked with such a gifted artist who also happens to be a fantastic storyteller. Ali is an interdisciplinary artist whose work span performance, installation, new media, public encounters, and political agitation. Born in Battambang, Cambodia in 1974 and raised in Chicago, she is a first-generation American of mixed Malay, Cham, Khmer, and Thai ancestries. Working transnationally, Ali investigates the artistic, spiritual, and political collisions of her diasporic hybrid identity with the resolve that in-betweenness is a powerful space for creation and provocation. Ali believes performance allows for the magic of reinventing the self and projecting larger-than-life personas liberated from oppressive representations. Currently based in Tacoma, she is also the co-founder of Studio Revolt, an independent artist-run media lab whose works have agitated the White House, won awards at film festivals, and redefined what it means to create without a traditional studio practice and trans-nomadicality. Ali's works have been acquired by public and private collections and globally exhibited and performed. This includes the Haus der Kunst, the Palais de Tokyo in Paris, the Smithsonian, the Queensland Art Gallery, Gallery of Modern Art, and the Shangri-La Museum of Islamic Art, Culture, and Design in Hawaii. Many of these sites are represented in the show you'll see this evening. A recipient of the 2020 Art Matters Fellowship and the 2015 Sovereign Asian Art Prize from Hong Kong, Ali received her MFA from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. She serves as a senior artist in resident at the University of Washington, Bothell, with an artistic practice between the Asia-Pacific region and the United States. Anida is going to present an overview of her practice, and we'll open it up to questions after she speaks. Without further wait, please join me in welcoming Anida Yoeu Ali.
Assalamu alaikum, Jimriab Sua, Susdai, Swadika, hello, Komusta, hola, bonjour, konnichiwa, aningsayo, wadamuli in the language of the Bindal people, the Aboriginals, and huita kisiam, Koselish. Welcome. My name is Anida Yoeu Ali, and as Jose and others have said, I am an artist, educator, and self-proclaimed global agitator. I am of mixed heritage, Thai, Malay, Khmer, Cham, and American, living in diaspora, currently residing in Tacoma, Washington State in the US, home to the Puyallup tribe, born in Battambang, Cambodia, and raised in Chicago, also in the US, Chicago being the traditional homeland of the Anishinaabe, or the Council of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi nations. I have no birth certificate. I hold an American blue passport, and I hold a K-1 visa in Cambodia. I work as an artist in between the US and the Asia-Pacific region. I teach as a senior artist in residence way up north in Bothell, in the traditional lands of the Willow people. I am Cambodian, Muslim, diasporic artist, astrologically a Sagittarius, fire sign, mother to 3 daughters who are not fire signs, wife to a Japanese filmmaker who is also not a fire sign, and our family is both Buddhist and Muslim. That's my introduction. So this is the work that you are seeing up there. And I want you to know that, you know, all the comments that I've received today from the press preview earlier to here is really about the scope and scale, right? Really, the space is reimagined as a contemporary art space here at the Seattle Asian Art Museum, and the scale of the work, and also the amount of years that it has taken for each of these works, these 2 major epic bodies of work. And I want to tell you that it took me 41 years to arrive here, to have this solo show at this prestigious museum, because I have dreamt of being an artist since I was 9 years old. Since I first placed, I didn't win, in a coloring contest at the local McDonald's, where I won a pair of adult tube socks branded with golden arches, socks that were gifted to my father. And this paved the way for me to dream of being an artist. And so the show before you includes these 2 epic works of mine placed in direct conversation to one another, because both utilize religious aesthetics to provoke ideas around otherness and or the fear of the visible difference. These 2 works are The Buddhist Bug and The Red Chador. Both were created within a transnational process, this idea of going back and forth and back and forth. Both offer encounters to a global public, and both deal with really difficult and contentious issues, you know, themes around otherness and tolerance, belonging and displacement, but in a humorous and joyful manner. So it's as if both, in many ways, trick the viewers, the audience, to come into this complicated conversation and start to tease out what is happening in terms of what you might be viewing and experiencing in the moment. Now, it also took me leaving the US to reside in Cambodia for about 4.5 years to fully realize my work as a performance installation artist, to completely feel untethered to identity politics and overly racialized American context, to be given the liberty to realize and experiment on a level never afforded to me in America because of the burden of representation that's unfairly placed on artists of color. I've spoken before about my work in America, laying the foundation as if they were mere sketches for what would be fully realized in Southeast Asia and what would be actualized once I committed to residing in Cambodia and living amongst my Khmer people. It would take multiple trips between 2003 and 2011 of actively witnessing but never quite making work, and then ultimately moving there to Phnom Penh in 2011 to live, work, and raise my children, and to ultimately cultivate my practice to creating these two large bodies of work and many others. I also need to say that I did not do this alone, and this is key to my practice. I am not a lone artist that quietly makes something inside a studio and then reveals it to the world. My practice relies on others, on collaborators like my longtime partner, Masahiro Sugano, who's a filmmaker and photographer, and with art spaces and curators like Dana Leguao of Java Arts and Cafe, who gave me my first solo show and residency and who co-produced the first iteration of the Buddhist Bug. It includes a team of people from photographers, videographers, tailors, assistants, child caretakers, local community members specific to each site, local fixers, translators, courageous presenters of the work who would allow me to perform live and present these images, videos, and installations of the work itself. So this work is never created alone, and I hope you get that from the context of how many people you actually see in the many images and videos that are part of the show. I want to take it back to one of the quotes that's in the show. This is a quote by Sherry Rabinowitz, and you're seeing a neon sign by Lauren Bond. Artists need to create on the same scale that society has the capacity to destroy. And this is very important for me because it really drives what I do. I believe that art is a process of creating, and that creation is the counter to destruction. It is an anti-war stance. It is the counter to violence. It is the very much the opposite of destruction. And when you're faced with so much violence and trauma on that kind of scale, you also need to create work that counters it on the same kind of scale, if not bigger and more. And so that really brings us to, of course, Cambodia. And many of you may know about the history of Cambodia, this brutal history of the Khmer Rouge and what they did to a fifth of the population, what they did to nearly annihilate the artist population, and then the ethnic minority population of Muslims to which my family belongs. But what you're not gonna see in the show is that trauma playing out in these gallery spaces, because I refuse to do that. There are past works of mine that I've done that. I've usually write about it. I've made spoken word pieces, multimedia theater, a one-woman solo show that really excavated those experiences. But in this newer chapter of my life, post-2011, the work is filled with much more joy and celebration and humor, and that is done intentionally because I want to change the narrative and the global perception of Cambodia for something that is about temples and trauma to something about creating in the contemporary moment. That brings me back to the refugee camps of 1979, because this is where we begin. And a refugee camp is between the border of Thailand and Cambodia, and it's a camp whose name I do not know. And we begin here because it is an in-between space. And we begin with these photographs, and these are the only images that I have of myself. These are artifacts from a traumatic period in my family's history, and these are images that are the closest things to owning a baby photo. Except here, I am not a baby. I am about 5 years old, and I wonder if you can guess which of these might be me. So kind of think about it, circle it in your head. And here I am, the redhead. I am the one that is scorched by the 1979 sun. I am pictured to the right of a box, a care package from our Thai family who found us after they received word that some of us may have survived the Khmer Rouge brutality. And so if you guess that it was this child, that is indeed me, this little boyish looking little girl with sun-scorched hair, holding on to the care package and looking directly into the camera, at the camera, yet beyond. And this is important because the photograph plays such an important role for me. 1975 is a very significant year for my family, one that would change the course of my life forever, affecting multiple generations of my family. And in 1975, I was 1.5 years old, too young to remember all the atrocities that I experienced that year, because that is the year that the Khmer Rouge came into power, which is a Cambodian communist regime that took control of Cambodia and marched right into the capital city of Phnom Penh, where they created an exodus for anybody who were city people. It was a year that everything changed for our family, a year that would lead to war, famine, genocide, and ultimately the displacement of 1 million refugees, including my family, mostly to America, some to France, Australia, Canada, Germany. So this year, I did do some work around this year, and it resulted in an exhibition, a 3-person exhibition called 1975. And I used these photos, and I kept stitching and restitching these images over and over into these visual works. But for me, the work really failed. It failed because it was really lacking liveness or aliveness. And it's why I really claim of being a performance artist who also happens to have other iterations of the work as installation, as photography, as video, but really the root of my work is performance. And I've had a long history growing up as an Asian, Muslim, refugee, diasporic American. You know, I really learned to perfect my English, speaking without the accent that had marked my family as other and foreign. I had sharpened my verbal skills as a weapon, but when I started to travel overseas in the early 2000s to share my spoken word and my English-based storytelling about my traumas, and I often spoke loudly about racism, misogyny, oppression, patriarchy, stereotypes, injustices, genocide, really anything that was about the dehumanization of people of color. I would speak in this very perfect English, but it failed me overseas. Language failed me because people outside of America, including my fellow Cambodians, could not understand the nuance of my story or the craft in my verbal expression. People felt the energy and passion of my performance, but they didn't have a clue as to what I was saying. Even when the words were translated, there was a deep loss of the moment experience, and this would really shift my work. It felt like it was time for me to decolonize my practice, to shift it to a form that felt more freeing and ultimately something that could transcend borders and languages. So in 2006, my work started to shift towards performance art, which opened whole new worlds and unlocked my own imagination to new possibilities. And then really this is the work that you're coming to see. And these are just works that are not in this museum, performance installation works in which my body is key to presenting the work itself and to responding to different conditions of the moment. And even I've come back in 2018 to the text, so where the text is performing silently with the words as sculpture. So I often get asked the question of why performance, and this is where I always respond like, well, why not, right? Performance is both immediate and it takes time. The body is necessary, the body matters. Performance happens anywhere, anytime, for and by anyone. Performance, for me, is an art form that is an act of decolonization, because there's a freedom I feel in performing in public spaces and enacting fantastical mythical heroines that are extremely powerful and necessary. And it's about reclaiming power and occupying public spaces and reimagining hyper-presence, really forcing that visibility upon people who have for too long not seen me or people like me. And so this engagement with performance is about making the audience feel something. And the power of experiencing performance shifts between the performer and the public. And so my journey to coming upon nonverbal performance and using stillness and presence is something I have learned to hone, and it's something I have really prized in my process. And so we're going to come now upon the Buddhist bug. The Buddhist bug is really from 2009 to 2015, and what's exciting here at the Seattle Asian Art Museum is that the museum has the most complete collection of the series. So when you go into the space, you will see 22 photographic prints, 5 original haikus, 4 short videos in a kiosk, 1 large-scale 2-channel corner video projection, a bug sightings sculpture that has 16 prints that covers 10 countries and 13 cities. So she was performed globally, the bug. And then Sam has 100 meters, that's over 300 feet for Americans, of the installation itself, really winding from that exterior outside, what I call a non-exhibition space, and really reclaiming that space as an exhibition moment into the main exhibition space. And that 100 meters has never been shown because I usually keep about 15 meters, which is the original performance costume. It is the original suit that is used in all the photos. It is the very first version that was created in 2012, but it's rarely exhibited. But your museum actually required that entire length. And the Buddhist bug is definitely about the diasporic dilemma, which is this idea that I am constantly fluctuating in between the insider and outsider identities. And so with this work, what you're seeing here is that it's the idea that I am between not only insider, outsider, but local and foreign, right? That I'm between here and there. And these get activated at different moments. And so I began conceiving this work in 2009. And I was looking at the ways in which I would come upon Southeast Asia, and I took all these trips from 2004 until 2009. I took all these trips, and I would take these snapshots, these secret snapshots of monks. I saw them everywhere, and it was really overwhelming for me to see the orange. Because I grew up in such a religious Muslim household, I thought that there were more Cambodians that were Muslims, and only to realize that we are a very small ethnic minority that numbered 5% before the Khmer Rouge took power, and then it was reduced to 2.5%, because 50% of the Cham and Khmer Muslim population was destroyed, was executed. And so that feeling of being surrounded, by this overwhelming presence of Buddhism, I was trying to create then a creature that would, connect these two disparate points, this here and there, this foreigner and local, this insider, outsider. Really, that's the formalist quality of this work. Like, what is the form that this creature would take that could both be a bridge, a tunnel, and an entity itself? And it didn't click to me until I gave birth to my first child in 2008. And we were gifted this play tunnel. And this play tunnel is a very special, parents know, it's a very special tool because it collapses so you can easily put it away, but then when you bring it out and expand it, the kids have a blast. Right? They're crawling through it. They're safe because it's soft and it takes up space, and they're having the time of their lives. And so when I saw my child interact with that form, I started to sketch and to realize this is the form. This is the entity I want to make. It is the Buddhist bug. It is a creature that is modeled after the Islamic headdress of the Chador, and practicing the idea of Islamic modesty in dress, where she only shows parts of her body, in this case, the feet and the head. And she's overwhelmingly orange to represent the feeling that I had when I first came to Southeast Asia, both loving and adoring the monks that I saw, but also just feeling the overwhelming presence of a different religion, now realizing how special it was for my parents to give us their Islam, to have us be put in Sunday school, Muslim camps. I grew up with a very diverse population at the local mosque of Iranians and Syrians and Jordanians and Egyptians, Indians and Pakistanis. A very diverse population that really took our family in, but also felt like my community. So the Buddhist bug, is a creature that is meant to really wander and take all these different forms of transportation. So you'll see a lot of this work where the bug is not only, in religious sites like this pagoda that is predominantly occupied by female monks, which is very rare. This image here that you see was a happenstance. We actually stopped, my team and I, including Masahiro, stopped by this pagoda to rest because we noticed this golden ship and wanted to see it up close. Little did we realize we had stumbled upon a very special pagoda that had elders. First of all, that's very special in Cambodia because so many were killed. Second, they were elders who were women. So that made it even more special. And so we did this in the moment, executing this staged encounter, but with permission. We had to go through a process of praying to Lokta, which is the male energy that they pray to. And so all of us, the whole crew, had to sit down on a straw mat, light some incense, pray, and then the woman started speaking in tongues. And we were like, what is going on? She is shaking, and she's done doing her chant, and she turns around and she says, "You've been granted permission." So, those are some of the stories. Every vignette, every photograph, every image has a story. I'm not sure really how to bring out those stories other than when I talk or I'm in conversation. And then, of course, the installation in the suit doesn't mean anything to me unless the body activates it. The live body and the act of it being witnessed by the public completes the work. And so you will see that on March 23rd when we activate this piece. This is the bug sightings piece that I alluded to. It's very important because of the ways in which every time the suit is displayed, it must be activated. And so really here is what I mentioned about the 16 sites across 13 cities and 10 countries. And children have sort of the best reactions and are the most curious in terms of their playfulness, their energy, and their courage to just go right up to her and, you know, speak their mind or go further with the work. And then there are others, you know, who want to do this friendly gesture of a head nod. This is in Kuala Lumpur, a very amazing audience as well. Brisbane, again, the children will do things like tickle their feet. And so as you can imagine, if I can see that they're tickling, I'm reacting because clearly, you know, we need to be connected, the feet and the head. You will also see a series that we nicknamed the Night series, and that is a video and 3 images in a light box that was taken at night. And that's really because so much of the work was done during the day and looking at both the rural and urban landscape. And that is my interest in trying to capture a very fast-moving Cambodia. The rate of urbanization and globalization that's hitting this city was something I wanted to capture. I knew that the 2013 Phnom Penh would be a very different scene right now in 2023, and so, or 2024. And then this last iteration of the Night series, which was a commission, was really looking at the youthful energy. I really wanted to capture that youthful energy and also what is happening with women's bodies at night. This is something that isn't really talked about very widely. And so in the video, it is comprised of over 20,000 images to create the time lapse, and it's combined with live footage from different scenarios that my team and I set up. So you'll see the bug at a disco, for example, which love, lots of young people go to discos. You'll see the bug at Dreamland, which is the amusement park, but it was also the site of a tragic stampede that happened, in which the government then redeveloped that area to try to reinvent the land and make it more of an amusement park instead of a site of tragedy. You'll see the bug at a local bar where there's a lot of questionable men that are real excited to see girls. And so and then you'll see a karaoke bar that is, you know, really a site of entertainment. And so you're seeing these women and girls' bodies move from one of innocence to one that's more transactional. Finally, you'll see the print, The Exiles, which is a very important piece for me and is the very last photographic image we created. It was taken in 2014, but it was really executed right now in 2024 in terms of the post-production on it. And you should be asking the question, why is the bug with these 7 men? And why are these men appearing to be so tough and confident against this backdrop of a dilapidated urban building? What is it about their tattoos, bandanas, American baseball caps, and blue jeans that may hint that they may not be or belong to this place? And why did the bug choose to stand among these 7 men? And what you'll find out if you read the extended chat on this is that this is a group of deported Cambodian Americans who are permanently exiled from America. And these are my friends. And the question that I pose is, has the bug finally found a community to belong to, one that is made of exiled Americans? Then the body of work that you're going to see that is also in conversation is the Red Chador series. That series is ongoing, and that work is a really complicated story to tell, but I think that the curation of this work and the amount of space that the Chador has taken, because you're looking at this space here, the main gallery, plus the 2 side rooms, plus the entire back room, all tells the story of the life, the birth, I should say, in Paris, the life spanning, I think, 15 cities, and then ultimately her death. And it's a room, that back room that is golden is made to appear very sacred. It alludes to the golden temples of Southeast Asia and kind of a divinity presence. And the start of the Red Chador is really based off of the colonial, right, the colonial remnants. My inspiration is really about fusing different aesthetics together to creating this work. And in 2015, I was in Cambodia, which is a French colony, and thinking about the legacy of colonialism. So the French left 2 things for us Southeast Asians. One is bureaucracy, and the second is the baguette, which has really changed some of the culinary interests in Southeast Asia. Banh mi sandwiches are made from baguettes. In Vietnam, in Cambodia, we eat the baguette with curry. And also looking at the headlines that was coming out between 2014 and 2015, especially with the Charlie Hebdo killings that occurred around January, I believe, of 2015, and noticing that there was this hardline ban on, the burkini and the burqa and all things sort of Islamic and veiled as if it's about liberating women, right? Veiled as if it's about equality for all women, when in fact it is about a racism and an Islamophobia. I noticed that the headlines were positioned such that the word beheadings was used oftentimes when it comes to talking about terrorists who happen to be Muslim, to show a savagery. And so all these pieces came together for me in thinking about the use of religious aesthetics. And here I am understanding that the telekung, that's what we call the chador in Malay. That's what I grew up with. And the representation of the telekung is something that is joyful and sacred. My aunties and grandmother and mothers and cousins, were wearing coverings, but they were joyful about it. It wasn't something that was oppressive. Yet there is this image in the media that projects it as if it is oppressive and not a choice. And so I'm combining my telekung, which is my chador, but I'm using the word chador intentionally because that's the phrase that everybody knows. That's the identifying word that is globally seen. And my love of other religions, particularly the bishops and the pageantry of Catholicism, combined with science fiction. Okay, I love science fiction. And so, yes, the Imperial Guards are also alluded to in the Red Chador. And she begins, it's the The first iteration is the only iteration where she speaks. Every other time it is all silent gestures over time. But here she is an executioner of baguettes for 12 hours. Selecting one baguette and making a demand to the public. She sets a kitchen timer for 60 minutes, speaks in French and English, demanding that if you want to save this baguette that she's holding hostage, you have to meet her absurdist demands. And there's a list of it, and I hope that you will take the time to watch the 4-channel video that's in the space. And some of the demands include, bring me the smile of the Mona Lisa, fill the room with all virgins, bring 99 Muslims into the museum, bring me a flag from every French colony. I want a private meeting with Inspector Clouseau and bring me the Pink Panther. Make all meals in French schools halal, and fill this room with non-white French people. And the Red Chador as an executioner is quite compassionate. So there are people who actually save the baguettes. I think it happened 3 of the 12 times, and each time, really the room erupts into applause because this is a symbol of French cultural heritage. With every performance of the Red Chador, there's always inside the museum and then the outside walk into the public that's durational. Hartford was a very difficult performance, even though I was a visiting assistant professor in international studies on the campus of Trinity College. This is really where I had the most vulgar reactions to her, lots of profanity leveraged at her, and students visibly shaking and then calling campus security and calling their parents. And so you'll see some of that footage in there. I also had people who just really refused to notice her and would audibly say that. So you'll see a lot of photographs and images in that last room. DC was another highly charged space, and so you'll see that in the threshold room. And the censorship that occurred because the piece that you see currently where she is surrounded by 99 flags and doing nothing was a contractual obligation. It was not the first iteration. It was not the second one that I proposed. It was actually the third one in which I said I would do nothing and I would not touch the flag, just to see if they would approve the performance. And of course, they approved the performance because I was going to do nothing but be silent amongst this 99 flags and 99 salam flags. And so you'll see in that installation space the actual contractual language up with the cut vinyl. The performance walk in the nation's capital was happening during the Rolling Thunder parade of veterans who roll in on their motorcycles with their Confederate flags, ironically. And then we have San Francisco. San Francisco, our haven of liberalness, was also one of the most dangerous sites for the Red Chador. And it was interesting because it's the only time she derobed, and I stopped the performance about a block away from the gallery space that I was headed to, and that was because the whole day, after 4 hours of performing outdoors, I was threatened. Someone was going to punch me. I was triggering another veteran's PTSD, and so he told me to get away or he was going to attack me. Several comments about harming me, and then finally a person rushed towards me and my documenter screamed and said, "Get away from her," because he had a windshield wiper and was about to whip me with it. And it was a bicyclist who came by and ran him off, and that that a random person basically saved us. And at that moment, I decided to derobe. And I said, this is enough. Like, we're done. We're taking off this costume, and we're going to walk the next block to the gallery safely. Hong Kong is a really powerful moment of enacting protests with 99 signs. And that utilized, the words of Trump in the campaign rhetoric. It used the pro-democracy movement, the umbrella movement's own words in Hong Kong as part of the text. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech is also embedded in there, and then words from the Islamic Quran and Hadiths. And all of that is appropriated so that there's an ambiguity in terms of what someone might pick up. I'm not interested in everybody knowing the source, but what I'm interested in is making a situation so that it isn't noticeably about civil disobedience, but because of what was happening in Hong Kong with the pro-democracy movement, I needed to really pay homage to that, because I was going to Hong Kong as a performance artist. And so in the art space of the art fair, it allowed for this art action to happen without it being seen as a protest against the government. And so all these words I picked were strategic to kind of mix that up and allow people in Hong Kong to be a part of this. And 30,000 people came to the Art Central fair, and so many people activated the installation because it went viral over Instagram. And so instead of me having to really, guide people into this action, people started to pick up the sticks and the protest signs and engage in the performance themselves. Here in Seattle, we have the day after Trump was elected president, and I went to Pike's Place, where a lot of people empathize. Part of being a performance artist is that you receive the public's responses, and you have to be ready for that. It's not for everybody. It's not a form for everybody, but it is for me. There's something about what I'm able to hold as an individual that allows people to really, give me their energy and give me, whether it's, the awful responses or the really great responses, the cathartic ones. People were crying to me. People were apologetic. I am so sorry. We know what's about to happen. We are so sorry. This is really messed up. All of these. There was a woman who had an IV, a bag in her backpack, who saw it on Instagram, came down with her IV tube and had a manila folder that said, "Not on my watch." And she walked with me a few blocks in solidarity. And that was really powerful, because this is the day after it was announced Trump was elected the 45th president in 2016. I don't have more time because we are running out of time, and I wanted to let you know that Malaysia was the last place that the Chador appeared before she disappeared, and that disappearance was in Tel Aviv, and that disappearance, I do believe, is an enforced disappearance, and you'll see that in the space moving from her birth, life to death. And I do have this quote up there, as much as I have the Sherry Rabinovitz quote as well, because the loss of that garment, the original garment, who had experienced so much in those 2 years, 2015 to 2017, is a part of me. And so when you lose something like a garment because it was taken from you, or because, let's say, her death was a mystery, even if we say that that loss is a really deep wound. And so I had already booked all these exhibitions, and I wasn't about to remake the gown. It just didn't make sense to just, make it again. It felt like a part of history was lost. A part of me was being silenced. And so I created memorial exhibitions in 3 different countries. And that includes these newspapers that you can take out of the red newspaper box. You can take an obituary that's actually written by a journalist. So I did ask a journalist to write, and the newspaper, because it appeared first in Cambodia, is written in both Khmer and English. And then I performed a kind of hybrid ritual to kind of honor, to really, this was about me. It wasn't about the public. It was about me mourning this loss very publicly, but it was a ritual I created to just honor that. And it's not until 2019 that the work is rebirthed as multiples, as the Red Chador with 6 others. I call them the Chadoras or the Rainbow Brigade. And that is continuing the work, but on another scale. And that is my interest in aligning solidarities, in aligning struggles, that if our community is going to speak out about Islamophobia, we should also align ourselves with homophobia and with issues of queerness. And it's not just about the religion of Islam. I think there are other religions that also are very unaccepting and are very homophobic. And so this was my moment as a Muslim person to align with other people's struggles and with, again, my interest in queer aesthetics. And so because the Chador died such a lonely death, if you think about the way that she was packed in the luggage, having never come out because she was in transit in that moment, coming from Kuala Lumpur and going to Ramallah, she was packed in there. She never came out, but she still, quote, died. That luggage, one of 2 luggages, that luggage that had the Red Chador never came back to me. And the airline officials had told me that it never left Tel Aviv. And my route was Tel Aviv to Istanbul, Chicago to Seattle. And when they traced it back, that information was that it never left Tel Aviv, that the other one came back, but the one with the Red Chador didn't. And so this birth is a mythological rebirth, right? Out of water and fire, we have this amazing spectrum. We have this amazing, beautiful collective, this protective circle that the Red Chador can now not be alone anymore, that she has this sisterhood, this collective, that she can walk the streets once again and rise from the ashes. So I'm going to end with a newer piece that's never been seen. This is a commission from Townsville at Umbrella Contemporary. And you're going to see 3 minutes of a 12-minute video. And I'm showing this because I want you to understand how I work, which is oftentimes when there's a residency, I go to these locations with my partner, Masahiro Sugano, and we create like an ad hoc team on site. We select local participants to join us, but we also look at like, what is this place about? What is the city about? But also like, what's the moment about? Sometimes it's a political moment, sometimes it's a cultural moment, sometimes it's both. And so in Townsville, it happens to be the intersection of art, the military presence, and athletics. So you will see the way in which we stitch together this video art piece from the live performances. And this is like strategically done because we're picking certain sites and we have certain props in alluding to it. So during the 2-week residency, it just happened that there was the biggest rugby competition. What would you call that? Yeah, the biggest like rugby game between Brisbane and Townsville, who are like nemesis. And then the military had this huge garrison this kind of war games moment where they were showing off all of their arsenal. And then on top of it, we have this amazing presence of the arts, from the murals to the presence of Umbrella Studio being a pivotal contemporary art space. So let's cue the video, and this will be, we'll take questions after. I want to thank Seattle Asian Art Museum, Seattle Art Museum, Jose Diaz, and all the installers, and then my own studio team as well. I want to thank my partner, Masahiro Sugano, who's such a big collaborator in this. I want to thank all of you for being here.